You're listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series.
Welcome to the microphone, Supreme Court Judge David Ashton Lewis. Good morning.
Thank you for welcoming me, as always, on a Thursday at this time, and welcome to you.
Thank you. Welcome to all of the listeners out there.
Yes.
We've just been out to the Seniors Expo up there in Southport, and hello to all of you out there who are up at the Seniors Expo. I always love seeing all those familiar faces as well as some unfamiliar faces. Yeah. It's nice to see all of you.
Well, I just constantly, I hope people listening don't mind me saying it, I just constantly am impressed with this radio station. Now, I am a director of it, I should declare that, but the work that this radio station does, led by you, Colin, and by our top financial controller in Robin, you know, you've really brought this station into more modern times. You have also brought it back from possible danger, and I commend you, but I think it doesn't matter whether I do, but I think every time I get confronted out there, and because the distinction of my voice, for instance, I walked into the surgeon I've got to be operated on the 15th of August, and I'm walking up to the reception and I speak, and the lady was very nice, and she said, "Aren't you on the radio?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And then I had to see another lady who looked about 18, and she told me she was way past that. She was a grandmother, looked too young to be a grandmother. And she said, "As soon as I heard you speak, David, I knew you're that voice on the radio." Well, so isn't it lovely? And I commend you. I mean, this is the work from Hilton from day one. But we did hit a period where we were not moving forward. We were going around with decent people who found it hard to recognise that they had to move with the times.
Look, I'll thank you for your kind words, but I'll add to them. I think the most valuable component of the radio station is the listener, as
definitely.
well as the wonderful volunteers that commit themselves to the station, and you're one of those, David. It starts at the top down, and the board are all volunteers, all the way through to people in the newsroom, sitting on the reception desks. Our wonderful volunteers out there at the Seniors Expo today, Trish, Di, Bev, and they're all standing there handing out brochures, big smiling faces talking about the benefit of 4CRB and what it means to them, which is lovely.
Most definitely, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but it's important that everyone knows only 2 people get paid in this organisation. And, I've just been corrected, 5. Well, isn't that good, given the amount of listeners that we have? And every day, I mean, the average listening audience for this today will be probably about 60,000.
Thereabouts, yeah. Well, it's very difficult to tell at any one moment how many people are listening in. The internet helps us there, though. But the radio is very difficult to measure.
The internet, 20,000 or more?
So it's measured weekly. 85,000 people on average per week listen to the terrestrial broadcast on the FM or the DAB+.
Yes.
And on the internet, it's up to 55,000 people.
Well, again, thank you.
Yes. Well, today's topic, David, let's wander into that. Responsibility. We did kindness a couple of weeks ago, forgiveness last week.
Yes.
We're moving into responsibility, and this is a good topic. I absolutely love responsibility.
Yeah, I think it is a good topic.
Some people do forget respect and responsibility, and we're touching on respect next week, but responsibility is a big component of all of our lives, whether we recognise it or not.
Well, anyone listening over 50... in their 50s and upwards, think back to your childhood and your mother and father and the community in which you lived. There was definitely a greater sense of responsibility to your fellow man, to your community, to those in authority over you, government, and there was a sense that there was trust in them, but they were doing the right job. I was listening yesterday to a retired lieutenant colonel, pardon me, in the Australian Army, who is the co-founder of a new, well, it's not a party yet, they're building their constitution and saying, and it's called Australians for Better Government. And I thought, oh, I'll listen to this, because sometimes these type of bodies are a bit right wing, if you like. Shouldn't say that really, and I listened to him speak. He was on Ben Fordham, and he spoke really well, and he put up some tremendous ideas as to, the male brain does not reach maturity until 24, 25. And I reflected back, I have two members of my family who were Second World War fighter pilots. One was 21, and so he was in the right age, and the other one was 25. And he only got selected after the age of 22. They wouldn't consider you for fighter aircraft in the Second World War because he already had an unrestricted private license, so that they put him through. Now, the 21-year-old, he was 19 when he was flying in the Pacific, and he said, and when I knew him as an older man, he was in his 50s, and he was the senior check captain at the famous Ansett Airlines, jet pilot. And he said, do you know, David, there were things that I did as a 19, 20-year-old fighter pilot in the Pacific against the Japanese ground attacking. He said, there is no way I would do it now, and I wouldn't have done it even in my 30s. And he gave an example of their squadron leader was badly hurt, but he'd flown too close, evidently, to a percussion mine in a tree, and he was able to get his aircraft back, but he was badly injured. So he was sent down to Australia, and he was 22, and he was known as the old man of the squadron, and he said they replaced it with a 25-year-old wing commander. He was a better flyer than all of us, but he was too cautious.
That's right.
He would not take the risks that we were taking, and I won't go into it now, but he described their means of attack of the Japanese in Salamoa and Lae, and he said he wouldn't do it, and we lost 2 men killed because of his cautiousness. So he said we all complained, and after a month with this man, he just quietly wasn't there one morning. He'd been withdrawn back to Australia. So when I heard this Lieutenant Colonel saying how they really focus on that, focusing on not a lot of young people today under 25 have sufficient knowledge, experience, or common sense. And so one of their platforms is to raise the age of adulthood to 25.
Sure.
And he's had tremendous, evidently, complaints. Well, hang on, no taxation without representation, because many are at work at 18, 19, and so he said, we don't take tax from them. They don't pay tax till they get to 25.
And you're absolutely right. If you remember back to your younger years,
oh gosh,
and I won't use the word irresponsible because I don't think that's actually the term. You didn't have all of those value statements that rolled through from 25 and onwards. And it used to be a lot younger. You had a girl on your arm that you were cared for and appreciated. You might have a mortgage and you're considering children. So there's a lot of valuables in your life you think, hang on a minute, I really need to second guess or second think some of the decisions that I used to. But when I look at my time, I was parachuting and flying aeroplanes and doing anything and everything that was...
At what age?
18 to 21, 22. And then eventually those sort of things is, oh, geez, I wouldn't do that again.
No, well, I think every listener, not so much women. Women, I think, are in a better position. Men are the ones they were mainly talking about, but obviously young women will come into it too. And so as I listened to him, I thought, I must seek to get more information about this organisation, because I notice now there's been a big turn against, in the United States, diversity, equity, inclusiveness and wokeism.
Nice.
In the government and in departments, and saying you pick, for instance, people not on the basis of the colour of their skin
Or their gender.
You pick on merit.
Yes.
And if an African American or an Asian American is a Hispanic American is clearly the leader of the group, he or she gets the job. And I think, oh, heavens above, not before time. And I see that Monique Ryan, who holds the seat that I grew up in, and that was Sir Robert Menzies' seat, Kooyong in Melbourne, she's advocating that the voting age be lowered to 16. Now, you can't help think that purely is a means of getting support for yourself, because you'll make all these lovely statements on social media, and a 16-year-old will think, well, I'll vote for that, without really thinking through. Oh, the key word I'm looking for is critical thinking.
I think that's the term.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, how does this all tie in with responsibility? Ties in with it perfectly. We have a responsibility to our family, our neighbours, our community, our government, to in the government, govern us properly. So pick the right candidates. And this gentleman, this Lieutenant Colonel, said, and if you put critical thinking, well, he didn't use that term, look at the majority of people representing us in the federal parliament. How competent, learned, and responsible are they? Mainly, they're all driven by their party policy and to get re-elected.
Yes.
And that really has to stop. We are facing important times in the evolution of the Australian and becoming an Australian and being an Australian, and there's no place now for thinking that's not responsible.
Look, it's interesting because you can see the compromises as they creep through. And over our time here at 4CRB, we've run into a lot of politicians from all sides of government. And it concerns you when you hear, and the compromise is party politics, because you're voted into a seat, you're voted in by those people who in that area for you to represent them. But then when you get into the party, it is about what the party thinks is in the best interest of the country, whether your voters like that in the majority or not. Now, I get it, because there's so many people that you have to negotiate with to try and get anything done. If they were all independent, we may go nowhere fast, because it's very difficult to get a consensus out of people who are all pulling in a different direction. But the compromise, moreover, is when you start hearing, well, what are we going to do about scooters? Well, they're voters too, and we've got to be careful about these things because we don't want to upset them. Hang on, it's about what's right and what's wrong.
Of course it is. It's not about upsetting them.
Yes.
It's about being able to face them in their corporate anger and say to them, be quiet, just be quiet. Your first responsibility is not to your particular group. Your first responsibility is to the country.
Indeed.
And if the majority of the country are against you, then bad luck.
And I think that's the point. I mean, we put people into government, we put people into areas of responsibility to do the right thing on our behalf, not what's right for them or what's right for other parties. And again, that comes down to also personal responsibility at times as well. That does not seem to be something that we carry anymore.
Well, I think you're probably right. When I was in the 60s, when I was in my teens, this 1968, my first year at university. Yes, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and rock music and everything was important. We looked, as my father said to me, if I look at a photograph of you, at 18, David, or 19. I look at a photograph of myself at 18, 19, and I look at a photograph of my own father in the late 1870s. He was born in 1865, so let's say 1883. They had the camera, and he said, when I look at my father and my father was at a ball or something, and that was, I think, about 1891, 92. I was at a ball in 1937, and he said, there's no difference between us. I'm in a dinner suit. He was in a dinner suit. Just that beard was very popular in the 1800s. It wasn't popular when I was that age, but we looked the same. He said, I now look at a photograph of you at 18, and you look nothing like us. So things change. And he said, I can't expect you to think like me and put my head on your shoulders. But there are some things that should be common to all of us. And his great words to me was, be kind, be responsible was one of his words, and remember, you're part of Australia.
Let's pull down the definition of the word responsible, because it's one of those things that I now worry about, and where we missed it. I feel that I grew up knowing that I need to be responsible to myself, responsible to the people around me, that I'm going to do the right thing, not only by myself, but by them.
Yes.
And that seems to have disappeared somewhat.
And I was going to add to that, in 1968, a word started to creep in, and it's we baby boomers who are, I think, really responsible for what we say is lacking today. Now, I think we're going to have telephone calls saying, no, we're not. Do you remember, if you were a baby boomer at university or you were doing a job, this word, if it feels good, do it. Remember those words?
Yeah,
hey, if it feels good, do it. And I saw people in my lifetime take those words way beyond where they were meant to go. And, well, it feels good to me, so do it.
That's right. But where's the line in the sand?
Well, I suppose that you would ask, if it feels good, do it. Yeah, it feels good to me, I'll do it. But then not ask what you just said. But what effect will it have on the other person?
And that's
or what effect will it have on the community? Or on society?
Look, it's funny because I've been watching on television the last couple of nights a show about 67, forgive me that the exact number may be a little bit more or a little bit less, of women who were disappeared and potentially murdered. Some of them have never been found again. Up between Newcastle and Byron Bay.
Yeah.
Now, if you take that preface, if it feels good, do it, I'm sure a serial killer would argue, well, I was told feel good, do it. There is a line and a responsibility to your fellow man, and that is fundamental.
And that is why we have a thing called the rule of law.
Sure.
That the law prevails over everything. But the law, I'm speaking in a couple of weeks, and one of the questions they've asked me to speak on, you've been in the law for 50 years. 1975 was when I entered. And so what's the difference you've noted? Now, there's a huge difference, and we've spoken about these things in the past. This over-preponderance on youth, and they're only young, their brain hasn't developed, and so we now have the current Queensland government has passed a law, you do the crime, you do the time. And I see that young 18-year-old Somali Australian, I think he was, who stabbed Vilene White to death in a shopping centre car park after she had given him her keys, you can take the car, and he still murdered her. Now, he's come to this country as a refugee. That's understandable. We have failed in not being firm with refugees for the first year or 2 years here. You will spend at least one evening a week or on the weekend learning about our Western system of government, the value of it, and what the law is. Because some of these people have come from countries where the law is whatever the big tough man says it is.
Well, they're scared of the police.
Yeah, they're scared. And I remember as a child, and others will remember this, it might have been around, although you were born in 1969, so it was heading into a new era, but we were taught, we had the police come to school and under the banner of the policeman is my friend.
Sure. But
did you have that as a child?
We did, but you were still very, very concerned about doing anything that would put you in trouble or even attract the attention of a police officer.
Yes. So, look, responsibility is all what we have just been talking about. And it has, firstly, you do think about yourself. But in terms of thinking about yourself, not if it feels good, do it, but what is my responsibility in this?
Yeah, I agree.
And then once you get to your responsibility, then depending on what you do, and what's the responsibility of others? What's the responsibility of the community, the society, the state, and the government, the federal government? And we've really been lax in moving away from that firstly, you're an individual and your individuality is supreme. We've stopped adding to it, but you're an individual who's part of a community and it's not just what's right for you.
Look, the other things that have influenced this is turning doing the wrong thing to be something that is a negative. You should learn from your mistakes. That is first and foremost. It's a fundamental of science. It's a fundamental of a great many things, and it should be a fundamental of our upbringing and understanding. But if you make a mistake, you're in trouble. And nowadays, if you see how that translates, even in the workplace, but I only did that because you did this.
Yes.
Now, that is taking responsibility for nothing.
Yes.
And in fact, it's infuriating at times that everybody wants to blame something else or someone else or the circumstances that surround that thing.
Well,
Why not put your hand up and say, my mistake, I've learnt from it, won't happen again.
And you're given a chance, The people say, well, like this young man, because he's pleaded guilty to murder, saved everyone a trial, and so it'll be interesting to see what his sentence is, because it should be, and he did this when he was underage, and they didn't have the you do the crime, you do the time. So I'll be waiting with bated breath to see what sentence he gets for the willful, intended murder of another human being.
All right, couple of minutes to go on the show, David. A bit of a summary.
Well, I think we could add, though, too. You've heard me say on a few occasions, none protest their innocence so loudly as the guilty, and none protest their responsibility so loudly as the irresponsible. So, responsibility is a factor of natural human life, but it has to come from your beginnings. So if you've got drug-taking parents or really quite slack parents, what's the responsibility you're going to learn compared? I've met your mother. I know your father has passed away, but you've told me about his life. I have no doubt that young 13-year-old Colin was made plain to him, to you, this is what your responsibility is here, lad. Do it.
Yes. Look, it was very clear what our responsibilities were, not only to ourselves, to the people around us, but to the community we live in.
Yeah.
And it's somehow it's been diluted or it's been forgotten or it's been lost. There are a number of things. Some people will say to me, I had a gentleman say to me, our biggest problem is that we've stopped teaching history anymore in schools, and learning from our past is a way of saying have a good look at your past family experiences as well and understand the negatives, the positives, where you had some wins, where you had some losses, all of those sort of things.
Oh, I think so.
So that we can reflect.
Yes, look, I do. And so this is the end of the third one, kindness.
Forgiveness. We've just done responsibility.
Yeah.
Next week is respect.
Oh,
Interesting.
well, that's a good one. Well, thank you, Colin. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And don't hesitate to ring in and give to Colin or to reception your views on responsibility.
Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series. Support local online content and become a financial supporter today at 4CRB.com.